Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Amy, the Mystic Rose Tarot. We are on January 21st, our first decan, welcoming in the month of Aquarius, which took place 2 days ago, January 19th. And this first decan is showing its rulership in Uranus in Aquarius. So before I go on with the reading for this week, or for the week of January 21st to the 29th, let me give a little bit of a background on Aquarius. Okay. Aquarius is a fixed sign. It rules from January 19th to February 17th. The date changes every other year by a day or so. So it could be January 20th to February 18th. So this year, it falls on the 19th. And it is ruled, as I mentioned, by Uranus, which is its ruling planet. And Uranus is a planet of personal freedom, independence, innovation, technological advancements, revolution, making quick changes. And with it being an air sign, Aquarius, and Uranus holding that element of air, air is just that. Air is is similar to water. Anything is subject to change. You kind of go with the flow. The current, the direction of the wind can change all of a sudden. And next thing you know, you're moving one direction, and then the pressure changes and the wind moves in a different direction. So Uranus has that unexpected sudden shift with thought, and how Aquarius applies their ideas when it comes to things. One moment they're doing this, they put all their time into it, and then something comes their way, which moves them in a different direction. And that actually sits well with Aquarius. Interesting for it being a fixed sign. The fixed attribute, that fixed quality of Aquarius falls not so much in their actions, but more in how they use their mind. So once they have an idea, as outlandish it could be, or innovative, they stick to it. It may be off the wall, the approach that they take to complete it, but they do stick to it. They believe in it. They have their own self-belief that what the goal, the idea that they have will happen. And they take in mind, they being Aquarius, they take in mind for the better interest of humanity. They want to see humanity change. They want to see it evolve. They want to see it grow. And that comes, as I mentioned, through changes, innovations with science and whatnot. So what's interesting too is Aquarius has this mindset of thinking outside the box, and they up the ante by that, by thinking outside the box, by creating their own box, by creating their own niche, if you will. And these are more or less the environment that Aquarius can manifest its ideas. So they could see what's going on. They're almost like the outside looking in, and they're like, oh, okay. This is the box I'm looking out into. I have something that could be different. So they look around, they see what's going on, and what they perceive is something that could be done better, maybe more efficient. Something that could just change the way that us humans utilize what we work with, the internet, or interacting with people. It's also held, Aquarius is a sign that holds rulership in the 11th house. The 11th house is of ideas, goals, friends, organizations that they feel very strongly about. And whatever sign or planet that you have in that 11th house, regardless if it's Aquarius or another sign, it goes to show the influence of that sign and planet in that 11th house, how you approach. How do you approach working with people? How do you go about manifesting your goals? It's how you perceive things. It's the actions, the thoughts that you take before making those steps, and that falls in the 11th house. So with our first decan, okay, I'm going to move right into the first decan. As you've seen in my past decan readings, the last few readings I've been working with the Lumina Tarot and the Tarot of the Holy Light, and I'm using the Unified Esoteric Tarot as my guide. And there's no change in that. So with the first decan, as I mentioned, this is the Unified Esoteric Tarot. This falls in its proper planet of rulership. Uranus and Aquarius, the card, minor arcana card of influence is the Five of Swords. And so the Unified Esoteric Tarot assigns this card the keyword for detachment for the first decan. So for this week of January 21st into January 29th, our first week into Aquarius, detachment more or less explains how Aquariuses come across when they're in the process of understanding or conceptualizing a situation or a goal. Aquariuses tend to analyze things a lot, and they think here, and they don't. First is here. The heart really doesn't play much of a role. They want to rationalize what's going on, so they come across as having a detachment. Anyone who is very logical, very mind-oriented, for the most part, you can sort of see where they only see things in one way, and they take it from a logical perspective. And emotionally, even though their heart's in the right place, they're very nice, they're very understanding with people, but emotionally, are good-natured, but emotionally they don't understand, more or less, when it comes to matters of the heart, if it comes to relationships or sometimes handling situations emotionally. They have to kind of break it down and analyze it. And it's interesting because it's an odd concept for me, because being a spiritual centered person, everything goes from the heart, but it also connects to the mind. But I tend to feel from here first. And there are moments, I will say, that I will probably use the logic first, where it feels like that's the only way to deal with a certain situation. So I understand this, but for someone who just completely sees things from a logical perspective, is kind of interesting for me. So again, Uranus is that personal freedom, independence. They want that space. They want that space to move around and to have an environment where they can just shift things at will and work in that space. They don't like to be confined. If they're being confined and feeling too much pressure, it can actually cause them, another sign is revolution. It may cause all those ideas and everything that they have, if they're being put pressure, like if Saturn in Aquarius, where it comes to limitations and restrictions, that pressure that Aquarius could be feeling from Saturn's discipline can actually help them put more of a focus on things. But it has to be a certain amount. You don't want to put too much discipline, limitations, because what happens is they will rebel. And you have to be careful with that with Aquariuses that are more of a rebellious nature, that not taking hold of everything. They're just releasing. They don't care what other people think, and that will tend to be a negative against them. So for detachment, it's creating a balance, but using more of the mind, more of analyzing a situation. And if you can put a little bit of that heart, be a little bit more sensitive towards, a certain scenario or a concept or how you interact with someone, try and do that. Just soften a little bit. Feel from here a little bit more. And when you have that balance of the heart and mind, you're able to respond in a balanced manner. So here's detachment for the Unified Esoteric Tarot. And the card of influence that we have here is the Five of Swords. I'm going to take a little bit of water here. Okay, 5, as many of you who practice the tarot and are aware of numerology, we are in a 5-year, which is the Hierophant, which I just did a video of. But here, we're in a different element. The Hierophant is ruled by Taurus and it's the Earth sign, but here we have the 5 of Swords. This is a different kind of conflict. Swords deals with the mind, the intellect, how we make our choices, and how we handle certain kinds of conflict. With the 5 of Swords, it's a sense of the challenge, the conflict that we have just come out of. There's a sense of loss. It's a conflict, but it's a conflict that choices, actions weren't made properly, and there was a loss, either by someone else that you know or by yourself personally. It could be a battle with someone that you know of, a friend, a business partner. You were both vying for the same thing, but as I mentioned, the loss is there. And the awareness of the loss by the opponent puts into question the business partnership, the trust that was there. Was this something that was done behind the person's back? And they did a move and it ended up going against their partner's well-being, friendship. It's dealing with unresolved conflict. 5 of Swords. How do we make amends? So the challenge is done, the conflict is ended. What do we do at this point? Do you want to forgive the person? Do you want to forgive yourself if it's a conflict that you're dealing with yourself? Again, with the Swords, it deals conflict of the mind, conflict between the mind and the heart, possibly. What can you do to resolve this? How can you make amends? Can you be forgiving to yourself about it? Can you see it from not one side, but from both sides? Or do you walk away from it, still holding those unresolved feelings, but you walk away from it and you move on? And maybe in time, those feelings will just sort of drop off, and those thoughts. But for the most part, they tend to stick with you. So how do you handle that? How do you handle a defeat? What can you do that's different for next time, or to avoid a possible conflict? So the cards that I have here, that gives different perspectives of this. This is with the Lumina Tarot. This is the 5 of Swords. And again, both of these cards, they do deal with struggle. Okay, here we have a moth. Moth butterfly shows metamorphosis, transformation. But here it's in a dire situation. You know, there's a noose right above it, and then we have the swords right below it, and it almost gives the situation like there's no way of winning. You know, you're gonna make a choice to end drastically. Either way, you release, you let go, and then you land on these swords. Okay, and again, the swords are the thoughts. These are the thoughts that are trying to come to peace with what's going on. And then we have the noose there, which is just like, it's almost like an easy out. It's like, oh, let me just end it and I'll just do it like this. There is mistrust here. Again, it sort of holds close to the Rider-Waite-Smith meaning. Your faith, you put your faith on the line based on the situation, on the conflict, or with yourself. You made some choices, you did some actions that didn't work in your favor. You're overwhelmed. This is a time that you don't look for an easy out or you release and fall into this. You take a moment to reevaluate, as I have mentioned with the Five of Swords, what your thoughts and actions were that took place to have this challenge arise. And what were the actions that you were taking while the challenge took place, the conflict, that caused the loss? Judgment wasn't made properly, which caused to put you in this situation. Learn to use better judgment. And again, look back. No, the five, the swords, the pentacles, wands, cups, the fives deal with different aspects of challenges. And I feel what's very similar with these fives, to move on to the next card, is it's a moment to stop. Okay. So we see here, this moth is right in between. It's between two elements that show that there's no way of winning. But you have wings. You can keep that momentum. You could stay in that situation, work through it. Again, forgiveness for yourself or for those who were involved, and then move on. This here is the moth is questioning your strength or weaknesses. Are you going to fly? You know, are you going to sink or swim, similar? Or are you going to just stay there and not do anything about the situation until something eventually does weaken and it ends up not being in the best interest of you and those around you? So really take a look for Five of Swords or any of the fives of the suits. Look at the actions. Look at what took place beforehand, what choices were made. And again, it's a poor sense of judgment that caused this loss. So really look into that. Ethically, what did you see that was wrong and you realized, and what can you do to change it? Create peace with this and then move on. Okay, the next one is the Tarot of the Holy Light. Here is our Five of Swords. Now, with the Tarot of the Holy Light, astrologically, the placement of the signs and planets are different. Well, it's more the planets, less than the signs, from the Golden Dawn astrological correspondences. So here we are in the month of February for month of Aquarius, which we see here. But for this decan, here it shows Mercury. And Mercury's well with Aquarius because it does deal with the mind, choices, creating balances. And here we have an interesting conflict. I want to show you with the Lumina Tarot. Here we see 5 swords. They're actually above the situation. And 3 of these swords are broken. Oops, sorry. And then here we have the 5 of swords. They're all intact, but they're below. And so this is like the ultimate outcome if, choices aren't made properly. Here with the 5 of swords, we're seeing a challenge between a battle of sorts between 2 birds. And birds represent air. And then we have the Ouroboros, which is showing the cyclic energy between these 2. But with these 5 swords, 3 of them being broken, to me, I would interpret this as how this process is being done between these 2 birds that are in conflict with each other. There's some broken choices here, if you will. While the other 2 swords are still there, and those are the only ones that are remaining intact. So in a sense, it's like there are some choices here that aren't being made properly. We don't know which one it is, which opponent it is, but there are 2 swords. 2 swords can go for either one of these creatures to determine who's going to win and how they're going to win. What's interesting with the Tarot of the Holy Light interpretation is this is more about strategy. And the key is how thoughts and actions, again, are placed in a challenging environment. So it's similar to chess where, you have to make that proper move to advance to the next step and then to eventually, hopefully, win. But it involves watching your opponent's actions. You got to see you have to see your opponent could be physically someone else. Your opponent could be like angel devil within yourself. You have the good side, the light side, the dark side, those 2 opponents. How are they working against each other? And how are those elements? Which one is the stronger? Which one's the weaker? And another thing of interest is that if we have 2 opponents of equal strength or of equal weaknesses, there's not going to be an end to this, because everyone involved in this is holding on to their actions. One person isn't modifying. They're both dancing at the same pace. They're both fighting at the same pace. It's like you want someone like, okay, someone make a move, someone overtake, someone, weaken to give in. And this is what we get here with these 5 swords. Okay, so we see 3 of them broken. Somehow, again, there's weakness that's taking place. And these other 2 swords are giving you that opportunity to be skillful, to take that one sword, use it skillfully, and also to analyze what's going on, with the situation. And that way you could better assess how to overtake the conflict. And there is a lot of potential here to move on, but the thing that's interesting here is the key for this card is learning from your opponent, learning what moves, learning what kind of skill they used during this conflict to either win or to lose. What advantage did you have in possibly winning from the situation? What disadvantage did you have that caused you to lose the situation while the other person overtook? And won the challenge, won the battle. And again, with Mercury here and Uranus, okay, let's focus a little bit more on the rebellious side of Aquarius. Rebellion is good, but you have to understand how can you not hold back rebellion? How can you not balance rebellion? There's a sense where you have to, again, be mindful of what you're doing. And too much rebellion, too much strength. Rebellion can also be a weakness. Too much of that can actually disempower the whole situation. And then nothing happens. Again, we're dealing with similar weaknesses, similar strengths. Nothing is changing. Someone has to give in. Someone has to let go, release, make peace with the situation, and to learn from it. And that's pretty much what the Five of Swords is right across the board. It's learning from those challenges and how to avoid, again, any potential conflict that may come around. Or if it does arise, use the knowledge. Even though if you were the loser or the winner, use the knowledge that you had and apply it. Use the experience that you gained from that loss to better address the situation that comes up again. So with the Five of Swords overall, for the week of January 21st to the 29th, let's be mindful of what we do. Let's be responsible for what we say. Let's think before what we say something. Let's look before we actually take action towards something. And also look beyond it. Look and see. Be revolutionary in how you will approach a situation. This can involve a relationship. This can involve work. This can involve yourself for healing or for helping someone along the way. Because again, it's in the house, the 11th house, where it deals with how we work with people and how we want to see things for the better of those around us. So again, with the detachment influence with Uranus in Aquarius for the Unified Esoteric Tarot, try and put a little bit of heart into this. This is all I want to say. And I'm not saying all Aquariuses are heartless, that they don't have any feelings or whatnot. It's just their approach to things. They see things from a logical perspective, which for them is more real. And it's concrete, and it's something that they can actually work with. But by putting some more subconscious awareness into your situation, okay, you got your thoughts, you're rationalizing, you're getting all of your swords in a row, if you will, to get, to start getting your goals and whatnot ready. But put a little bit more feeling, put a little bit more heart into it. Don't be so detached. And sometimes there'll be Aquariuses that don't, that's how they are. And it's kind of hard to put feelings into what they're logically doing. We could probably see their enthusiasm, and that's the expression, self-expression that they have. Once they're reaching that pinnacle to the goals and ideas that they have. So that's what we have here for our first decan for January 21st to the 29th of January. And I want to point out, as I try to do in all my Decan readings, is that the astrological placements, the planets, the signs with decks like this, the Tarot of the Holy Light, like I mentioned, that one has Mercury in Aquarius. Here is Uranus in Aquarius. The Golden Dawn astrological correspondences have a different planetary placement. Keep in mind, these are fixed associations specifically for these decks. These are the interpretations that were placed with each of these cards by their creator and how they can help guide us during astrological monthly periods, like here we are in Aquarius. These do not state what is currently going on. So if you want to know where Uranus is right now, Uranus is in Taurus. I think it's in Taurus for, I think, a few more months. It's direct right now. And then it goes into, I think it goes back into Aries or Gemini. I think it goes back a sign or two. I'm not certain. But it will change signs, I believe, in May. So if you want to relate the Decan reading for where the planetary associations are with the signs right now, since we are already in Aquarius, feel free to do so. Uranus and Taurus, in relation to Uranus and Aquarius, how can you relate those two influences? Uranus and Taurus, Taurus also being a fixed sign, doesn't do well with sudden changes or shifts. So there's that grounding aspect that, in spite of everything that's going around and changing, they're trying to still maintain control. They're still trying to maintain grounding. So my sun's in Taurus, but my Uranus isn't in Taurus. It's in another Earth sign. But it's interesting to feel that Taurian energy of a bit of instability when things happen all of a sudden. But here's the thing. With Uranus and Taurus, Taurus, again, very steadfast, very focused, they will make it work. If things are a little chaotic, they will work with that energy because they still have to get things done. They'll work through it. There's that tenacity and that determinedness that, in spite of these changes that are happening last minute, just go through it. Just maintain that earthy foundation of strength to continue forward. Anyhow, that was Uranus and Taurus. I will be back January 30th or 31st, give or take a day, to give you the second installment, the second Decan for the month of Aquarius. And so a Decan represents, depending on which deck you're working with, anywhere between 8 to 10 days. Normally it's 10. In this deck, Unified Esoteric Tarot, it's actually going with 8 days. And within that time period, this is where the influence comes in as your guide. And we use the Five of Swords as a means of dealing with conflict of all sorts. How to work with it, how to make amends with it, and how to move on. So we will be 10 to 20 degrees into our next Decan. I don't know what planet it is. I haven't looked into the card yet. I don't go that far ahead. I take it as the week goes on. And I will discuss with you. We'll be with the Six of Swords. So with each Decan for each astrological sign, since we're in Aquarius, again, Aquarius is an air sign. It's ruled by swords. We are 5 for our first Decan. 6 will be our 10 to 20 degree Decan. And then 7 of Swords will be our 20 to 30 degree Decan, wrapping up the last part of Aquarius. Excuse me, which will probably be, I said the 17th, 18th, probably 18th of February will be our last Decan for the astrological month of Aquarius. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Any questions, comments? You know where to leave them. All my information's in the description. I have a Patreon page. If you want to take a look at that, please do. I'd love to be of guidance to anyone. I have readings on my website that are available. I have a nice menu of different readings that I do. For the January 31st, for this month, I'm running a special on the Wheel of Life readings. I have 2 readings, Astrological Wheel of Life, which focuses on the first 12 months of this year. And then I have another Wheel of the Year, which I call the Witches Wheel of the Year, and I focus more on the Sabbats, more on the seasons, such as Yule, Imbolc, Astara, Beltane. So I do a reading based on those seasons and how during those seasons, what cards I pull are of influence and of guidance for you and what to look out for. I did do my own Wheel of the Year reading, which I posted this past weekend on YouTube. So feel free to take a look at it. It's my own personal reading. I did the astrological version of it. And I want to do a version of the Witch's Wheel of the Year. I don't want to wait too late because we're going into our seasons. I'll probably start from Yule and wrap it all the way around to Samhain. So there'll be 8 Sabbats for that, 8 seasons that go into that form of practice. So that's it. Again, thank you so much. Have a wonderful week. Happy birthday to all Aquariuses. Go out there and share all your ideas and eccentric sides of you that a lot of us like to see and sometimes are surprised by. All right, I will be back again soon with another post. Stay tuned, and I will put it on the schedule so you can see when it's going to be posted next. Thank you again. This is Amy of the Mystic Rose Tarot.